This is the Horse Radio Network. This is episode 530 of the Stable Scoop Show, the Horse Radio Network's equestrian roundtable show in coordination with American Horse Publications. Our sponsor this episode is Kemin Equine. I'm Glenn DeGeek, founder of the Horse Radio Network and host of Horses in the Morning, the longest-running daily horse podcast in the world. We're about to hit 3,000 episodes, which we think will be more episodes than any other independent podcast. So that's going to be happening in August. We'll be celebrating that and having some parties around 3,000 episodes. Welcome back to the Equestrian Roundtable. We're excited about our partnership with American Horse Publications. AHP is an association of equine journalists, and HRN has been a proud member for years, along with all of the panelists tonight. Each roundtable from now on will have a couple of members of AHP, and we're also going to get some listeners, and we get some hosts also from our shows here at the Horse Radio Network, which we have 21 of now. I'll be the host and moderator tonight, but I do have opinions, so I will be jumping in occasionally, but mostly the panelists will lead the way. If you're watching live, welcome. If this is your first time watching, feel free to comment, and if you're watching live, and join in the conversation that way. Tonight's topics are going to include books. They're going to include barns and when you should leave them when they become toxic. We're going to make that our last topic. Nothing like ending on an up note tonight. And also size. I mean, horse size, does it really matter? That's our second topic for the night. But our first one is going to be a little more light and lively. Let's meet our panelists tonight. And we are starting with AHP member and HRN host of the Lead Line podcast and leader of the pack over at the Lead Line, a community for horse business owners. And that's our own Mandee Flanders. Hey, Mandee.
Hey, Glenn. Thanks for having me.
So good to have you here again. And again, you have the beautiful painting right behind your head. I like that.
Always.
And since we had you last, we're going to talk more about it later, but you're doing great guns over there with the Lead Line podcast. I'm so proud of you, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, lots of things happening, always moving on to the next big thing, but that's how it goes, running a horse business, right?
Great. Well, and this is my new studio, by the way. So I'm in the new place, in the new studio. That Afghan, which is right over there, the other side, hanging up there, was made by my wife's stepmom. It took her 6 months to make that, and so I had to put it as my backdrop now for the new studio.
Well, she's far more talented than I, because I could not make that.
She laid it out and everything, and did it without a pattern. I mean, I don't know.
That's amazing.
I don't know how she did it. All right, next up, we have AHP member and author at the Timid Rider. She's been on before, like all our panelists tonight. She's a good friend. We spent a lot of time together in Dallas last year. Heather Wallace is here. Hey, Heather.
Hi.
You're in a kind of a bunker too right now, it looks like.
I am. Well, I'm in a loft, actually, in my little cabin in Vermont, nestled away. So trying to get away from the hustle and bustle a little bit every once in a while.
Well, it looks cozy.
It's very cozy.
What she's not telling you is she has a whole bunch of kids locked in a room downstairs and threatened their lives if they said anything or if they were noisy.
I mean, if their parents are listening, everyone's alive. I've just bribed them to be quiet for about an hour and let me do my thing.
Well, let's see if that works. We'll find out.
We'll see.
And we also have Natalie Keller Reinert on here tonight. She is an AHP member. She's an award-winning author of many, many books. She's a novelist, and we're happy to have her. She's soon going to be my neighbor, too. She's moving up close to where I am in Ocala. Hi, Natalie. Oh, you're on mute. Let's get you off of there.
I was trying to be good and stay on mute, and then I totally lost my train of thought.
It's not going to be it's first time or last time tonight that happens. Well, Hi, Natalie. Thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
We're going to learn more about all you guys and what you have going on a little bit later, but we're going to start right into the first question. And this was brought up by Heather. Heather, explain it.
So recently on Heels Down Magazine and Trafalgar Square Books have put together a little brainchild to celebrate equestrian literature. And so on May 10th, there's going to be Buy a Horse Book Day And everyone's encouraged to take selfies and pictures with their favorite horse books and to tag hashtag buy a horse book day and really build some momentum and excitement with this amazing corner of our culture. I'm really excited about it.
That is really cool. So what we thought we'd do to celebrate that is we all picked our favorite horse books that we're going to talk about tonight. Heather, why don't you get started?
Well, I was told I couldn't pick my own. No, I'm just kidding. I knew I couldn't pick my own. So I really gave it some thought, and I have a couple. You can't beat the Black Stallion books. I mean, they're a classic. They take me back to my childhood. My kids have started to read them, which I'm really excited about. And then I wanted to say In the Heart of a Mustang by M.J. Evans is one of my favorite recent books in the last few years. And it's all about a troubled child and a BLM Mustang kind of meeting and building a relationship of trust and connection. And then, of course, since I write nonfiction, I love nonfiction. So Physical Therapy for Horses is one of my go-to books to have to, help condition and strengthen my horses. And so I wanted to give that a shout out today.
Very good. Thank you. Mandee?
Well, I had to dig deep for this, you guys, because if you ever see those memes on Facebook where people share the memes that say they have all of these books that they haven't read in 5 years and they can continue buying more books that they won't read. I am that person. And it's so weird for me because growing up, I was the kid that would go to the library and I would check out the maximum amount of books that they would let me take home, to the point where they actually raised the bar for me because they knew I'd bring them back, but they also knew that I'd read 15 of them in 1 week. So I used to read like crazy. But as an adult, I think that just being taken back with social media and my brain is always caught up in all of these other things, I have a really hard time giving a book my full attention all the way from start to finish. I have a lot of started books that are sitting around my house that I'm like, oh, I'll finish that at some point. And I haven't finished them. So when it came to horse
Natalie makes the same amount of money if you finish it or not. You bought the book.
Just buy the book.
I will say I have bought books from both Heather and Natalie, so I have them.
Well, now we know that you haven't read them.
So. I've started both of them. So they're here, but every book I own has been started and not finished, it seems. So I had to go way back to when I was actually still finishing horse books. And there was a Western fiction series that I used to read. And I actually grabbed them off my shelf because I've read these books 3 or 4 times, but it's been 10 years. So for anyone watching on video, my favorite series was the West Texas Sunrise series by Paul Bagden. And they're Western fiction. So there were 4 books in the series that I read 3 or 4 times over. And I hope they're good because I haven't read them in years. So maybe I would have changed my mind if I'd read them more recently. But they used to be my go-to Western fiction books that I grew up reading when I was a young adult.
There you go. Anything else?
No, as far as horse books go, horse books, I'm not really a big, and I say this all the time, I'm not a big equestrian book person. I don't read a lot of horse books. The books that I have finished more recently were not horse books. I read a lot of the Harlan Coben series. He has a lot of shows on Netflix, actually. They're based on the books. So I've read a lot of those and I've read those from start to finish. I'll take them on vacation. I'll read 2 or 3 of them at a time. But as far as horse books go, it's been a little bit for me.
This is a good reason to do the buy a horse book day, so that way we can get everybody really interested.
If you're watching live, post what your favorite horse book is, and we want to see what your favorite horse book is. Go ahead, Natalie.
Oh, well, first I was going to say, Heather, we need a new holiday called Finish a Horse Book Day.
In honor of Mandee Flanders.
You know what? I do have probably 15 or 20 horse books I've never read. I like Laughing in the Hills. I have a beautiful edition of Laughing in the Hills, which is a horse racing memoir. I've never read it. I have actually a ton of horse racing memoirs I've never read that I just bought because I thought they looked really cool. Books are okay just as decor. It's okay. They make you look smart. They're pretty. And you really don't have to
really smart then. I have a lot of books sitting around, so I must look really smart.
You look like a genius. So I'm going to represent some fiction now, okay? And so one of the first ones is fairly recent, and it's our friend Linda Shant's wonderful horse racing series, Good Things Come. Linda is one of those rare birds who has been in the horse racing business for years and is also an incredible writer. And so if you want to like dig into the horse racing scene that you loved in the Black Stallion, but you want to know about it from an adult perspective, fantastic series. So good. And they go to Woodbine, Saratoga, tracks in Florida, Palmettos. Like you can taste the air. They're a great series. And then I'm going to go back to a classic, Jilly Cooper Riders. I mean,
somebody just mentioned that, one of our listeners.
That book is incredible. Like, it is raunchy and it is literary and it is funny and it is accurate. I absolutely love that book. And the cover, I can't believe that cover still exists. It's a man grabbing a woman in riding breeches. And I really thought by like 15, 20 years ago, that cover would have been just no-node right out of existence. Nope, still going. Really impressive. And it really sums up the book. But it's a fantastic book about upper level jumper riders mixed in with the excess of the 80s. Just stupendous book. And then going super, super gentle in the other direction, but still British and amazing. Carolyn Ackrell's Eventing trilogy. I read these books last year. I think they're from the early 80s. They're classic British comedy set in eventing with like kooky, aristocratic ladies who live in a big house that's falling apart. And the horses all have names like, I can't think of their names right now, but there's like the horse that won't jump, or like they've just got titles. It's so good. I recommend this series so hard. The Eventing trilogy. The books are Eventer's Dream, A Hoof in the Door, and Ticket to Ride. And I think there's a fourth one coming out soon. And they're just so funny. And then the last one is not funny, and it's also not fiction. It's nonfiction. It is Blood Horses, Notes of a Sports Writer's Son by John Jeremiah Sullivan. This book is about thoroughbreds and racing, and the history of thoroughbreds and horses in general. And it's also written from the perspective of the son of a well-known sports writer. John Jeremiah Sullivan, who is the author. I think he wrote for Harper's Weekly, which is a fairly prestigious literary magazine back when this book was written. And it's just a really lyrical journey through the world of horses. And I don't typically pick up a lot of nonfiction, like the story of the horse or the story of people who love horses or things like that, because it feels like it's been done a lot. But I really feel like this one stands out. So that one, again, that's called Blood Horses, and it's by John Jeremiah Sullivan. Those are my recs. Those are what you should pick up, in addition to Heather's books. And encouraging Mandee to read her books.
I just want to point out, Natalie has a very nice bookcase full of books behind her on video.
That's just one of many.
So, speaking of looking very smart, she showed up ready tonight. She was like, I'm going to have my bookcase ready.
And Mandee, if it makes you feel better, I have an entire shelf on my bookcase dedicated to books I have that haven't written. They're like my to be read pile. So you're not the only one. Okay, there's a backlog for sure.
Well, fun fact.
I'm trying to make Mandee feel better. I'm just going to say, Mandee, get to reading those books. What's wrong with you?
Well, fun fact. I just bought my first bookshelf yesterday at TJ Maxx. I haven't had one, so maybe that's part of the problem. My books have been in a stack on the floor for years, and I finally found a bookcase I liked. So maybe now that they're going to be more visible, it won't be as much of an issue.
Making you feel guilty.
You've got two. Yeah, we've got two authors here. We're just like, no.
I know.
All right, mine are, of course I have to pick this, is Lisa Wysocki's Cat Enright series, her 4 books, because 3 of those books include Jamie and I and Horses in the Morning Show. So, and they're great. We love those books. We actually read the first one on our show. We did a chapter a week, and we read the first one on the show, and it was very popular. People want us to do another chapter, but we haven't got permission yet. But we're going to get permission to do the second in the series. But yeah, and actually in the 4th book, we weren't sure if Jamie was the murderer or not, because they're murder mysteries, and she may or may not have been the murderer. I was encouraging Lisa for years to make Jamie the murderer, because I really wanted that, but you don't know. You have to read it. My second pick is They Called Her Reckless by Janet Barrett. And that's the story of Sergeant Reckless. It was a great book. It just held my attention from start to finish. What an amazing horse. And of course, we have a statue right over by me here at the World Equestrian Center of Sergeant Reckless. If you haven't read the story of Sergeant Reckless, there's a number of books. This is just one that I read. They Called Her Reckless, and I really liked it. She did a good job of really setting the scene in Korea and what this horse went through, and then what happened after the horse got home, too. And anything, this is my third category, it's a whole line of books, anything by Jean Abernethy and the Fergus books. I have every one, and I think Jean has signed almost every one for me, but I love the Fergus books. They're absolutely wonderful. And Jean is a trip. If you ever meet her in person, she is 4 foot of fire and dynamite. I think all of us who have met her know that's true. And I hope she's coming to HP, this year. I hope we see her there.
She leaves a lasting impression, I'll tell you that.
Yes. We had her, I got to show you guys my new studio, but also, sorry for anybody listening on audio, she did that drawing. That's of, Helena and I did Christmas time, we did an art show online, and we had Jean on, and she did that drawing throughout the art show. We had different artists on to show off their works at Christmas, and she did that in an hour during the art show, and it's Helena and I with Fergus in the middle. So it's my most cherished thing. It's over there on my right in the center of my studio. So anything by Jean is good by me.
I'm going to tell your wife that was your most cherished thing.
In my studio. Let me clarify that. Thank you, Heather, for
You're welcome.
For jumping right in there. All right, speaking of cherished things, let's hear from one of our sponsors right now, and that is Kemin Equine. We've had no shortage of stress this past year, and a lot of our attention has been focused on maintaining our health and immunity. Stress and illness can actually form a vicious cycle in humans and also in horses. Elevated cortisol levels caused by stressors like extreme weather, disease, diet changes, travel, and trailering can all throw your horse's health and immune function out of whack. But did you know that you can help reduce the negative impacts of stress by feeding your horse chromium every day? By lowering the levels of the stress hormone cortisol and optimizing overall energy use, feeding chromium results in improved body upkeep, health, and immunity, improving performance and overall well-being. To ensure you're supporting your horse, don't feed just any chromium. Find your horse the only FDA-reviewed source of chromium on the market today. ChemTrace Chromium from Kemin Equine. That's ChemTrace Chromium from Kemin Equine. Ask for it by name and stress less. Learn more about ChemTrace Chromium at Kemin.com/ChromiumEQ. That's Kemin.com, KEMIN.com/ChromiumEQ. So next up is our second topic, and the second topic was brought to us tonight by Natalie. So Natalie, what is your topic?
I'm simply asking if size really matters with horses. That's all I want to know.
With horses. She threw that in there at the end. So
I didn't even pause. There wasn't even a hyphen. That was one sentence.
What do you mean by that? Clarify.
Okay, so I ride a 14-hand pony. And when I was initially asked, hey, Nat, do you want to ride this unbroke 14-hand pony? I said, oh, no, God, ew. And I was wrong. This pony is amazing. And it really started making me think, like, you see a lot of people when they're on their horse hunt, they're very specific about the size that they want, or they say things like, well, I only fit a horse of this size. And I don't think that size should even be in like your top 5 reasons, or not reasons, but qualifications for the horse that you're going to buy and ride every day and potentially live with for 10 or 15 or 20 years. And I would say that goes for probably 99% of equestrians. Like, I don't think size matters.
Well, I like them small. I have a 12 and a half hand pony that drives my cart. So apparently I think small's great.
I think from 14 to 17 hands, is there really a difference? with conditioning and training and the way they're put together, I think those three things are more important than their height.
I think it kind of depends on their job too, right? I mean, it depends on what they're doing for a living.
To a certain extent, sure.
Yeah.
But most horses, Glenn, aren't doing anything that's that over the top.
That's true.
I mean, we live in Ocala, right? So we're used to horses that are doing big, crazy things. But the majority of horses, are they?
Yeah, that's true. Any comments there, Heather or Mandee?
Oh, so many. Well, so I have the two. I have a pony and a horse. I have a 14-2 pony and I have a 16-3 horse. And I'll tell you right now, they're very similarly built. And so it's just a matter of like a 2-step mounting block versus a 3-step mounting block. But I will say the only reason size matters for me, because I'm 5'0" and if I'm on a trail ride and I have to get off my horse, it's a lot easier to get on my pony again than it is to get on the thoroughbred. So I will say like the next horse I get is probably going to be like Icelandic horse size because just for functionality for me, because it is hilarious. I can't even get on my 14-2 pony bareback. I mean, I literally overshot him and landed on the other side one time. That's how like not flexible I am. So getting on the 16-2 is really kind of or 16-3 is really kind of I should videotape it one day. just yeah. So size does matter, I think. I mean, he's stunning, he's gorgeous, he raced, he's all that beautiful things. But like, if anything, size matters. But I think the smaller the size, the better.
Mandee, you're a quarter horse. You lived in the Western world. So what's your opinion?
Yeah. So I've only had a handful of horses throughout my life so far, 3 or 4. And the current horse that I have now, I've had for about 18 years, and I haven't had any other horses other than her. I also really haven't ridden a lot of other horses other than her, with the exception of when my husband and I went to Hawaii and we went on a guided trail ride. But even then, I think my horse was very similar in size to my own personal horse. So I kind of have, I guess I have a type, and most of the horses that I've had have been between 14-3 to like 15-1 max. And I think Lark, my current horse, is about 15 hands. So that's kind of the average that I've had between quarter horses and paints over the years, the handful of horses that I've owned. And I've never ridden a horse that was significantly larger than that. So I don't even know if I would enjoy it or not. I've just never even gone out and ridden other horses. I'm kind of a one horse kind of person right now, even though I could go to the boarding barn tomorrow and be like, hey, can I ride one of these other horses? She's got a draft. The barn owner has a draft out in the pasture that gets ridden and used for lessons and horse camp. I could totally ride that one. I've never even asked.
Oh, you should sometime.
You
It's like
should.
I owned Percherons, and it's like riding a big couch. It's so much fun to ride. You need to do it sometime.
I do want to do it for the experience. Yeah. But, Heather, speaking of a horse being too tall to get back up on the trail, like how has no one invented a portable mounting block that you can like tuck into a saddlebag?
They do have them.
Do they have them? I've never seen them.
Well, it's not necessarily a mounting block. It's a stirrup extender. And
Okay.
so what you can do is you can keep it in like a cantle bag or something like that. And then you hook it on the saddle or in the stirrup. And then you put your foot on it. And then as you get up, you just take it back out and put it back in. So I actually did purchase one because I'm getting trail ready. And I just know that if I dismount off my horse, I will be walking back to the trailer.
They work as long as your saddle doesn't slip at all. One of my partners, when I was in the mounted unit, had one because we were riding Clydesdales and Percherons at the time, and he was much shorter. Because I'm 5'7", so getting on a 17-hand horse from the ground isn't ideal. But we had a lot of park benches for the most part. So if we had to remount, we could mostly use a park bench. But every now and then you ran into a place where that wasn't the opportunity. And so he had brought one of those with him, and he could use it to get on a draft horse. Sometimes their backs are they're so broad that the saddle kind of goes back and forth. But I mean, nothing is perfect.
So you think you tell Mandee she needs to ride that draft horse once.
Well, I can't believe I'm going to say this because you're going to make fun of me, but the width can matter more than the height. Would say, and I have
keep it straight.
Heather and Glenn are dying right now. They're not even Glenn's not even near his microphone.
Because I was riding these Clydes like 4 or 5 hours a day, and they're wide. And so there's a change there. You know, if you're used to, I had gone from racehorses, literally riding racehorses every morning, to riding these patrol horses that were like just a completely different body shape. So it was not the height at all. It was the shape of them that was a change for me.
Mm-hmm. I wrote that down. 26 minutes, 17 seconds is the pull quote of the week. Let's see that one taken out of its context.
This is why you need to do those frog stretches. If you're familiar with like some of the stretches you do after a workout, sometimes you do these in yoga, but you have to do like those frog stretches. If you don't know what those are, look them up. But it helps with the hips. So if you're really tight and you can't sit on a really wide horse, you got to do more of those stretches.
I need to do them afterwards for sure. Yep.
Where did you ride for the mounted unit?
I was in the Central Park mounted unit for the New York City Parks Department. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. You saw a little bit of everything riding that unit.
Oh boy, did I.
Did you write a book about that yet?
It's mentioned in The Hidden Horses of New York, which is a book about horses in New York. So there's carriage horses because we dealt with carriage horses. There's race horses, and then there's park patrol as well. Yeah.
You if you ever do a podcast someday, I want an entire episode on the stories on horseback in New York.
We should just do a segment, like a regular. Here's another awful thing that happens.
You could do a whole podcast series on just that, I am sure.
That's crazy.
Anything else on this topic? Does size matter? You know, I think this has come up. You know, we're not covering it from the "Are you too big for your horse?" You know, that's come up. I know that Piper has written about that over at the Plaidcast, and you know that topic has come up in a couple articles recently. Actually, that's not what we were meant to cover here today. It's more of the stigma and stereotype of I have to have a big horse. You know, and you know, obviously we all agreed that we all have smaller horses, so. There you go.
And I think it matters what discipline you're in, right? Like if you're a jumper and you need to clear, 5-foot fences, I mean, yeah sure. A big horse is going to be
12-hand pony's not going to do it for you. No,
although there's been some instances of some eventing horses that were quite small and everything like that, so I guess size doesn't matter in that case, but it's more the heart, right? Yeah. But I think it's the discipline.
I think it's the discipline, and I think it's being realistic about what you're going to do with your horse. And then it's a matter of how your horse is put together, how technically trained your horse is, because a technically well-trained horse is going to put in less effort over a fence, for example, than a horse that's scrambling for every stride, right? And doesn't know where he's supposed to take off from or how to use his body. And I think conditioning plays into it a great deal for the exact same reason. So, I mean, there are stories of ponies going to the Olympics. That's why I said 14 hands, 17 hands. And I'm not saying every 14-hand horse. Obviously, this is a general statement. But I don't think I'd put in my top 5 unless it's about ease of mounting the horse. And then it's 14 hands all the way.
I agree. I feel seen. Thank you, Natalie.
I drive a carriage. I have you all beat. I just step right in. I'm right there.
I'm terrified of carriages. Of course.
You know, it's funny. Most riders are. They get in a carriage and they don't have anything to do with it. It's just terror. Yeah. And you know what? It is scary at times. There are times when I've been a little scared. If your horse bolts, it's a little terrifying, but it's terrifying if you're riding too.
Happen.
So yeah. Yeah, it's terrifying if you're riding or driving. Now, the thing about driving is you do have the carriage to deal with. You know, if you fall out, you could get tangled up in the carriage too. So, there is that. But I haven't fallen out yet, knock on something.
Yeah, let's knock on wood for that one because we don't want to put that out there.
Mandee, tell us a little bit about your podcast and your network.
Yeah, well, I've been podcasting now for it's been over a year, Glenn, since I started doing this last March. The Lead Line's a podcast for equestrian entrepreneurs. And on the show, I talk to a lot of other small business owners and people who've been doing it sometimes for only a year and other people that have been doing it for many, many years. But my guests come onto the show to talk about their experience as an entrepreneur and the things that they have learned so that, other entrepreneurs don't have to go through some of the same mistakes, And talk about the community that goes along with it. Yeah, we also have a Facebook community of about 1,600 people on Facebook. It's called the Lead Line Community for Horse Business Owners. And through that community, we also host virtual and live networking events for horse business owners.
And in a year, you have made that right up at the top of the Horse Radio Network shows as far as downloads are concerned. So, good
Oh,
job.
yay, good. Thanks.
Congratulations with that. Heather, what about you? What you got going on? You got a little thing coming out soon.
I do. I might have a little thing coming out. So I decided after the Horse World Expo, I was talking with my friend Natalie here and a whole bunch of people. Confessions of a Timid Rider needed to be a series, and because the story didn't stop, and it kind of ended with a little sadness with me not having a horse of my own, and so I decided to release Adulting with Horses, which is the second book of a 3-part series, and it's all about being a horse owner for the first time as an adult. And it's written in that confessional style, and I'm really excited. It's coming out May 1st. And it's going to be available at waterhorsepress.com, timidrider.com, and on Amazon. So I'm really stupidly excited about it.
So by a horse book day, it'll be available.
Yes, it will be. And I'm just saying, if somebody wants to post a picture with it, I will share, and I'll be very grateful.
And what's it called again?
It's called Adulting with Horses by Heather Wallace, and pre-orders are available now on Amazon and at waterhorsepress.com.
And what was the first in the series called?
The first book in the series is called Confessions of a Timid Rider. And then, which is a nice introduction of me returning to horses as an adult and all of the nerves that still were there after years off that I had before, but really being determined to make my passion my own and to do it my way.
I estimate that between 30 and 40% of our listeners are adults who have come to horses after a period of time. Either the kids are grown or something like that. They're in their 40s and, they've come back to horses, or they come to horses for the first time. So that's a large group.
It is. And there's so many people who private message me who join my Timid Riders community. And it's really the thing that keeps me going, just knowing I'm not alone, because I started writing it for myself, and it keeps me going and sharing such personal things, knowing that there's other people who really relate and not only identify, but are actually emboldened by sharing my stories so that they feel like they can maybe do it too.
Very good. Cool. May 10th. Buy your book. Natalie, I don't even know where to start with you. You have like 1,000 books out. Where do we start? Where do we...
I have a new book out.
Then let's talk about that one.
All right. So I have a brand new book, first in a new series called Ocala Horse Girls. And the book is called, the book's called The Project Horse. And I wrote it over the winter and had such a good time with it that as I finished up the last draft of it, I suddenly had ideas for other characters in the book. So the Project Horse is going to be followed up with the Sweetheart Horse later this year, and then a third book coming over next winter. I had to redo my whole publishing schedule.
Can you give us a kind of an idea of what it's about, what it's like?
All right. So the Project Horse is about Posey Malone, who is coming back to Ocala from New York City with her tail between her legs. She has failed at being a strong, independent woman in New York, and she's using her sort of recently widowed mother as an excuse to come home, sleep in her childhood bed, and regroup. Her father was a racehorse trainer, and when her mother announces that they're not actually staying in their childhood home, they're going back to work on the farm where they used to live, her life really falls apart because that farm is run by her childhood nemesis, Adam.
Of course. They get married and fall in love later in the book. Did I get it right?
No, they only fall in love later in the book. They don't get married. Oh my God, how long do you think it took? So yeah, it's a chick lit book with a big romantic arc. It's about a woman finding herself when she comes home. It's about a super cute ex-racehorse named Slowpoke. And it's about starting yearlings in the wintertime in Ocala, and just a big old equestrian fiction / romance book that I'm super excited about.
And what's it called again? Give the title.
The Project Horse.
The Project Horse. And all of your books can be found on Amazon, right? If they just search your name, the whole list will come up?
They can be found everywhere books are sold. Everywhere books are sold. The Project Horse is only live right now from my personal website. It will be live on Amazon next Tuesday. It will be live on Apple, etc. next Friday.
May 10th, buy a horse book day. That's right. Let me ask you, Natalie, I've had this conversation extensively with Lisa Wysocki. What's your process? Do you start writing? She starts writing and it just comes to her as she goes. She doesn't have an outline for the beginning, middle, and the end of the book before she starts writing the book. What's your process?
Sometimes it's like that. The Project Horse was like that. And that makes the revision really long and complicated and messy. So when I try to stay on a schedule, when I have a lot of books I want to get out, I do try to write a synopsis. Maybe it's just a page that says this happens and then this happens and then that happens. And that really helps me out. Because when I wrote the first draft of the Project Horse, the idea had sort of come to me. I woke up, I wrote it down, but I just started writing it and I was building all this tension and I had no idea what I was building the tension towards. And I put my first drafts on my Patreon. And so I write a chapter, I post it. And my patrons were going, well, we think we know what's happening next. And I was like, I'm glad somebody does. I was just writing tension and ratcheting it up. And they're like, when does it break? And when I figure out what I'm doing. So the continuity of rewriting, there was so many timeline things I had to fix and trying to get the story to mesh all the way through. So it's much easier to not do it that way. But some books, that's just how it happens.
That's how it comes to you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Every project is different.
That's cool. That's very cool. All right, let's go to our third and final topic, Mandee. I don't know if you've had this problem before. Tell us about it.
I've not had this problem before, but I do want to talk about it. And so the topic that I chose was how to know when to move barns. And this is really more applicable to people that board than people that are keeping their horses at home. If you keep them at home, that's awesome. But this is more for people that are at a current boarding facility and they are maybe feeling like they aren't sure if they should stay and start looking for something, someplace different, someplace new. And it's definitely something that I've considered. I'm at a wonderful barn currently, so there's nothing there that is making me unhappy. Like there's no barn drama. I probably get the best rate in the whole county where I'm keeping my horse right now. So from that perspective, it's great. The only downfall of where I board right now is that it's a 30-minute drive one way. So for me to go over there on a regular basis, that can get really challenging. It's just very time consuming. I have to factor in at least 3 hours to go to the barn pretty much anytime I go because it's like an hour of drive time. And then if I'm riding, that's usually an hour and then an hour of tacking up, untacking, all of those things. So it's at least like a 3-hour trip over to the barn. If my horse was much closer than that, it wouldn't necessarily be a 3-hour visit every time, or I could take more time, be slower about tacking up or not in such a hurry to get somewhere after. So those are some factors that I've considered in my own barn and where I board. But I can tell you I'm a member of a lot of Facebook groups, and I know that there's a lot of people that experience drama at the barn and they aren't sure when it's time to leave. So I wanted to kind of get the group's feedback on that. I don't know if you guys board. Heather, do you board? Or you keep your horses at home?
I do. I wish I kept them at home. That's like the dream. I do board.
So have you encountered anything where you've had to move a barn at any point?
Yeah, I feel like for a while it was at a Goldilocks situation where like this one was a little too big, this one was a little too small. And so I think like the first time I moved as a new horse owner, it was incredibly stressful because I didn't know if my horse would trailer. And the reason I ended up moving for that was because I just didn't feel comfortable there anymore. I felt like I was being like I didn't quite fit in. Like, and as a timid rider, I usually feel that way. Like I usually, there's a lot of people who are very confident and who like to show and things like that in the area where I am. But I was finding people were talking about me behind my back. and it made me not want to show up to the barn when they were going to be there. And I decided, you know what? I'm spending a lot of money on this horse, and this is my dream. And I don't want to ever feel like I'm not good enough. And so I picked up and I left. And it was, no bad blood. It just wasn't the right fit for me. And then the second barn I was at for only 6 months, and that was the opposite. It was too small at someone's home, and she was very involved. And I didn't want that. I wanted to do my thing. And so then I ended up moving to a different barn, which was kind of perfect. And, nothing's ever truly perfect, let's be honest, because you can't have them at your house and you're boarding. So there's always going to be something that gives. You really have to decide what your priorities are and if those priorities are being met. And so for me, socially, I wanted that to be the priority. Care is 100% always a given, right? So I think if you're going to spend a lot of money, you need to figure out what your top 3 to 5 things are and make sure that they're being met. And you should do that before you ever move barns. You should interview. You should go take a practice lesson with the trainer there. You should see all of the things that are important to you if they're part of that package. Because even for a while, I had both horses at 2 different barns, very different vibes. And that was tough in and of itself because I really struggled with one being so far away, but it was so much cheaper. And it's really, really better able. But I ended up deciding to put them together because it was important to me to be able to spend the time with both of them.
Natalie, do you board or have you boarded?
I have boarded. I'm very fortunate that I haven't had to board in a really long time, but I boarded all through like my teenage years. And I really ran into a lot of the same things like Heather was saying, where you can either board with one person and they're all up in your business, or you can board at a large stable and then there are factions. And that was just sort of my experience. I'm trying to think if I ever had anything in the middle and sort of mulling that over. And I was often at competition barns because I evented and I was pretty serious about it. And a lot of times we ended up leaving barns because of falling out with the trainer. For some reason, the trainer was too aggressive, or we just weren't comfortable with the direction that she was taking the program for some reason. And, I was at barns that had 80 horses, and then I'd be at a barn with 4 horses. And it just seems like there's always something. And I'm very introverted, so that probably played into it a little bit as well. Like if there was gossip or something going on, I was the first to say, oh, I have a stomach ache, I don't want to go to the bar, that kind of thing. And as an adult, it's been entirely about the commute, like Mandee was saying. For the past couple of years, my horses lived an hour away. That's too far. I can't do it. And so I figured out midway through that I was going to have to keep them at home because I'm too busy to commute. I simply can't do it. And that's one of the reasons that we ended up buying up near Ocala in the first place. Was if I have the horse in the yard, I can ride the horse. If the horse is an hour away, I will enjoy seeing pictures of the horse from far away. So it's a hard balance. I don't miss boarding, and I'm not sure what the answer is. How to know when to leave is definitely a question of, does this place make you crazy uncomfortable for one reason or another? Because if your horse doesn't make you happy, like you were saying, that's tons of money just down the drain.
We're boarding for the first time in 8 years. So we've had them at home and now we're boarding. So
wow.
But the boarding stable's 10 minutes away. So distance isn't an issue. You're right, Mandee. When we've talked about this topic many times over the last 13 years on the show, and it's always boiled down to 3 things why people are unhappy with the boarding stable. It's distance, people, or care. Right? It's one of those 3 things. It's always one of those 3 things. Your horse doesn't get the care you think they should. The people are driving you crazy. And it can be one person. There can be a barn full of 30 people, and it's still that one. It's just like high school. It's still that bully at high school, right? The one person on the bus that makes your life miserable. So it's funny how nothing changes that way, even when you're an adult. It's always that one person. And I think people know that the other thing, too, is you're right. Some people like me, when I go out to the barn, I'm very chatty at work, obviously, because this is what I do. And I'm talking to people all day. But when I go out to hang out with my pony, I really don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to go hang out with my pony. It's my quiet time, right? It's my time to just go out and hang out, drive him, do whatever, go riding with Jennifer. But I'm not there to socialize. And I know people think I'm probably stuck up. It's just, I'm done talking by the time I get out there. I've talked all day. So, I don't know. I think people know when they ask the question on Facebook, should I leave? They already know they should leave. They're just looking for that. You already know.
I agree.
If you've asked that question, if you've asked the question on Facebook, you're leaving. You don't know it yet, but you're leaving.
They're almost looking for confirmation of the instinct, right?
But it's hard. A lot of times there's not more than one barn within an hour of where you live, depending on where you live. We're not all fortunate like Ocala to have 20,000 barns here. Where you live, Mandee, there can't be a ton of boarding stables.
There's a handful in the county, but they're all at least like 20 minutes from where I am because I live in a very rural area on the lake that's
She lives at the edge of the world up there.
Yeah, I live up by Canada, Thousand Islands area. It's beautiful here, but because we live out on the lake and it's kind of like a little, almost like a peninsula area, it's one of the points. There's many points where I live. We're on pillar points. And it's just, there's no facilities out here. There was one for a little bit when I was first shopping for a boarding facility. There was one that was actually 2 miles from me on this location at Pillar Point. But I actually talked about this on Horses in the Morning a while back. I went to that barn and they had 5 Dobermans that jumped all over me when I showed up. And I was like, nah, bro, we're not boarding here. It was not for me. So I did end up choosing the place that was 30 minutes away. And since then, that person has sold that barn and no one has horses there anymore. I'm kind of hoping, I was kind of hoping the new owners would have a boarding facility, but it doesn't look like they will. So yeah, everything's at least 20 to 30 minutes. I've tried to find something a little closer, but I think, I'm having no issues at the current barn that I'm at. They take great care of my horse. They're great people and they leave me alone. Like you guys, I like to be left alone. I want to just go mind my own business, ride my horse. We do talk and we socialize a little bit with the owner and myself. But beyond that, we really just mind our own business. And I love that. It's very easy.
We we owned a boarding stable for a very long time with 20, 30 horses. And we liked people like Mandee. Come in, do their own thing. It's also, it's tough for the owner too, because you have a lot of work to get done, right? If you're feeding 20, 30 horses, you got a lot of work to get done during the day, and then everybody wants to talk to you. So you have to learn to work and walk and talk and work, at the same time. And it seems rude, but you have to do that or you never get your work done. So it's the other way too, when you're the owner of the barn. It goes that way. It's tough. This has been harder on Jennifer than me, because she did most of the care even at the farm when the horses were out our back door. So this has been a hard transition for her. She's getting used to the fact now that when it's raining, she doesn't have to go out and feed the horses. So that's kind of nice.
That
there
makes
are
it easier.
advantages to boarding. One of them is we can travel now without having to worry about, making arrangements. It's just there. That's one of the big advantages to boarding, right? You can go or not go.
Yeah, my husband and I talk about that a lot, the pros and cons. And I'm like, well, let me just keep a really good relationship with the barn I board at now. And then if we go away for a week, I'll just go board for a week.
Nellie says, here's a business idea, boarding barn for introverts. Only introverts. It'd be the quietest place in town.
There will be no drama.
You have to take a psychology test before you can come forward.
One of those personality assessments.
Yes. Great idea.
Yeah,
Nellie.
we don't want any liars up in here. Okay. You can't be a secret introvert or a secret extrovert.
Oh my God.
Give a plug for something because Heather's here tonight. First, we have to give a plug for AHP, American Horse Publications. We all belong. We all love American Horse Publications. If you're in the journalism business in any which way, any kind of media, basically in journal or in the horse world, you should belong to AHP. Look, I'm not a journalist. I'm a terrible writer. I talk. That's all I do. They let me in years ago. I don't know why, but it's you guys. I mean, it's just a good place to network and to be involved with. Natalie, how long have you been AHP?
2 years.
2?
2 years?
Yeah, I
2 years.
thought you were fairly new. Heather, you
I've been since Maryland. So what is that? 3 years?
3 years. Okay, so I'm the old timer here for AHP. Oh my god! And Mandee,
You
you're
said
fairly
it.
new
I did
too,
it.
right? You just joined when you got back into the podcast and things.
I did. Yeah, I rejoined last year.
Yeah, you were a member before, a long time ago.
Yeah, I went to one of their conferences back in 2011.
And we're all heading to Lexington. By the time we do another one of these, we'll be in Lexington. We're going to do Horses in the Morning live from the American Horse Publications, like we always do. So we'll be recording there and having some fun there. And you guys are all required to come sit down with me at the mic at some point. I don't want to do that by myself. So
Twist the arm. Get me to talk. Shocking.
And we'll be in Lexington, which is kind of cool because I lived there for 4 years and we all go to Lexington all the time. So I love that it's going to be there this year. So, and I also wanted to give a plug for something that we're doing this year in cooperation with Monty Roberts. He does something that's called The Movement, which is a weekend of horse training and education and things like that. You were there last year, right, Heather?
I did. I attended it and I had so much fun. It was an amazing learning experience.
It's at Flag is Up Farm in California, which is cool. Flag is Up Farm at Monty's place.
Beautiful.
Is cool. Oh, yeah. It is beautiful. And there's going to be multiple hosts from the Horse Radio Network there this year. Helena's going to be there from Stall and Stable, my first co-host 13 years ago. Jamie's going to be there because she's a Monty Roberts certified instructor. My co-host on Horses in the Morning. She's going to be doing demonstrations there this year. She was last year, right? She did demonstrations last year, too.
She did. And I got to say, it was really interesting to see, her go from radio, podcast host to all business horse trainer mode that I know she does on the daily too. And it was just really inspiring. She was very good.
Yeah, you'd listen to her in the morning. You wouldn't think so, would you?
No,
you
never.
Can't
No,
imagine that person.
You know I love Jamie.
Yeah, but we're a little goofy. So, yeah, there's some tickets left, only like 10, I think. So go to montyroberts.com. It's in the middle of June. It's in the most beautiful place. It's 2 days. Templeton Thompson's coming out to do a private concert for us the one night. So she'll be out there with Sam. Tempe and Sam are some of our favorites. So they're going to be doing a concert where we have cocktail parties. They have these things. It's a Dutch town. Or a Danish town, actually. And I get that wrong all the time, and the people get mad at me because we have listeners over there and they yell at me all the time. So they serve these things, they're donut-y-like things that are called able skeevers. Did you have any when you were there, Heather?
I didn't, but I pretty much had everything else. I ate my way through that town.
Yes, it's a wonderful town to eat through, and we're going to definitely have some able skeevers there, that's for sure.
I have
Think
FOMO
of
right
kind
now.
of like the Danish beignet. So it's kind of like that. It's just wonderful. We hope to see all of our listeners there. Dr. Wendy's going to be there. Helena and Jamie and I and Jennifer will be there. So we have a whole bunch of hosts coming as well. So we hope to see you all there. Thank you all. Real quick, Mandee, website.
TheLeadLinePodcast.com.
Heather.
The Timid Rider. So it's timidrider.com.
Timidrider.com. Natalie.
NatalieKReinert.com.
And we will put all of those websites in our show notes for today's episode. If you missed any part of this watching live, you can catch the rest of it on the Stable Scoop feed tomorrow. We'll be posting it there, so you can listen to the whole thing back if you would like. If you want to write down those book recommendations, you can listen back to it and write those down as well. And Nellie's going to be there too. She's watching right now, and she said, Glenn will be doing a riding demonstration at the movement. Yeah, no. That is not going to be happening. I promise that's one thing you won't see. Get me a carriage and I will drive a pony, but I'm not going to be doing a riding demonstration. Thanks everybody for joining us. Appreciate it. StableScoop.com.